Most of the time, when something goes wrong in our life, our first instinct is to blame the situation. We say, if this hadn't happened, I would be happy, or if that person had behaved differently, my life would be peaceful. But let me tell you something very honestly and very gently. Life is not as much about what happens to us as it is about how we respond to what happens to us. Two people can go through the same storm, and one comes out bitter while the other comes out better. The storm was the same, but the reaction was different, and that reaction changes everything. Think about it. Every day, life throws small and big challenges at us. A harsh comment from someone, a delay in our plans, a failure we didn't expect, a rejection we didn't deserve. At that moment, we feel we have no control. But there is one thing we always control, even if we don't realize it. Our response. That response is like a lens through which we see the world. If the lens is angry, the whole world looks hostile. If the lens is calm, even difficulties look manageable. Many of us believe that peace will come once problems are solved. But the truth is, problems never fully disappear. One problem ends, another begins. If our peace depends on the absence of problems, then peace will always be postponed. But when peace comes from within, problems lose their power over us. The same traffic jam that makes one person furious becomes a moment of reflection or patience for another. The situation did not change, the reaction did. Let me share a simple thought. When someone insults you, they throw words at you. Those words only hurt you when you pick them up and carry them in your heart. If you don't pick them up, they fall to the ground. We often say, "You made me angry." But nobody can make us angry unless we give them that permission. Anger is not forced on us, it is invited by us. And once we understand this, we slowly reclaim our power. Our reactions are deeply connected to our inner state. When we are tired, insecure, or stressed, even a small issue feels unbearable. But when we are centered, even big challenges feel lighter. That's why self-awareness is so important. Instead of asking, "Why is life so unfair?" try asking, "Why am I reacting this way?" That one question can transform frustration into growth. There is also a beautiful difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is immediate, emotional, and often regretful. Response is thoughtful, conscious, and wise. Reaction comes from impulse. Response comes from understanding. When we react, we give control to the situation. When we respond, we take control back. Life rewards those who pause before they respond. We often underestimate how much damage our uncontrolled reactions can do. A moment of anger can break years of relationships. A few negative words can destroy trust. A harsh reaction can close doors that were once open. And later, when emotions settle, we regret and say, "I didn't mean it." But the damage is already done. That's why mastering our reactions is not a small skill, it is a life skill. At the same time, choosing a better reaction doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging what we feel without letting it control us. Feeling hurt is human, feeling angry is natural. But staying hurt and staying angry is a choice. When we learn to observe our emotions instead of becoming them, we create space for wisdom. Life constantly tests us, not to break us, but to reveal who we are becoming. Every difficult moment asks us a silent question: will you react like your past or respond like your future? And slowly, with practice, we realize that our growth is not measured by how perfect our life looks, but by how gracefully we handle imperfection. When you change your reactions, you change your relationships. When you change your reactions, you change your work environment. When you change your reactions, you change how you see yourself. Situations may remain the same, people may not change overnight, but you will change. And when you change, your reality begins to shift. So remember, this deeply life is not happening to you, it is responding to you. The quality of your life is determined less by the events you face and more by the mindset you bring to those events. And master your reactions, and you will discover that you were never powerless. You were just unaware of your power. One of the most painful realizations in life is also one of the most liberating ones. Not everyone will understand you, and that is completely okay. From a very young age, we are conditioned to seek approval. We want our parents to understand us, our friends to support us, our colleagues to appreciate us, and society to validate our choices. Somewhere along the way, we start believing that if someone doesn't understand us, then maybe something is wrong with us. But the truth is far simpler and far kinder. People don't see life as it is, they see life as they are. Every human being views the world through their own experiences, fears, beliefs, and limitations. When you share your dreams, your struggles, or your decisions, people interpret them through their own lens. If their lens is different from yours, misunderstanding is not only possible, it is inevitable. And yet, we exhaust ourselves trying to explain, justify, and prove ourselves to people who are not ready, willing, or capable of seeing things from our perspective. There comes a point in life when you must ask yourself an important question. Do I want to live authentically, or do I want to live acceptably? Because the more you try to be understood by everyone, the more you start editing yourself. You soften your truth, you hide your emotions, you silence your instincts, all to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Slowly, without realizing it, you lose touch with who you really are. Many times, the people who misunderstand you are not bad people, they are just different people. Their journey is different, their conditioning is different, and their priorities are different. Expecting them to understand you completely is like expecting someone who has never seen the ocean to understand its depth just by description. No matter how beautifully you explain it, they will only understand it to the extent of their own experience. And here is something very important to remember. Being misunderstood does not mean you are wrong. Some of the most meaningful paths in life are lonely at first. Growth often looks strange to people who are comfortable staying the same. When you decide to change, to grow, to set boundaries, or to choose peace over drama, people who benefited from the old version of you may feel uncomfortable. Their lack of understanding is not a reflection of your failure, it is often a reflection of your evolution. We waste a lot of emotional energy trying to convince people of our intentions. We say, "That's not what I meant," or "You don't understand me," hoping they will finally see our heart. But sometimes, even after explaining 100 times, nothing changes, and that is when maturity begins. When you realize that clarity is kind, but over-explaining is exhausting. You don't owe everyone a detailed explanation of your life choices. There is also a quiet strength in accepting misunderstanding without bitterness. When someone forms an opinion about you based on limited information, let them. Fighting every misconception will only drain you. Your life is not an exam where everyone must agree with your answers. The people who truly matter will make the effort to understand you, not because you force them to, but because they care. Another hard truth is that people often understand you according to the role they want you to play in their life. When you step out of that role, confusion arises. The moment you stop being the one who always adjusts, always agrees, always stays silent, people may say you've changed. And they are right. You have changed. You have grown. And growth is not meant to be comfortable for everyone around you. Learning to be okay with not being understood brings immense peace. It frees you from the need for constant validation. It allows you to make decisions based on alignment rather than applause. When you no longer need everyone's approval, you gain something far more valuable, self-respect. And self-respect creates a kind of confidence that is calm, not loud. At the same time, this does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It simply means choosing your audience wisely. Share your heart with those who listen without judgment. Seek advice from those who understand your values. And for the rest, let your actions speak over time. Consistency has a way of answering questions that words cannot. Life becomes lighter when you stop trying to control how others perceive you. You begin to realize that misunderstanding is not a threat to your peace unless you allow it to be. You are allowed to be complex. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to grow at your own pace. And you are allowed to be misunderstood while doing so. So remember this gently. You don't need to be understood by everyone to live a meaningful life. You just need to be honest with yourself. When you accept that not everyone will get you, you stop shrinking yourself for acceptance and start expanding into your truth. And that is where real freedom begins. One of the quiet habits that slowly steals our peace without making any noise is comparison. We may not even realize when it begins, but once it does, it changes how we see our life. We look at someone else's success, and suddenly our own progress feels small. We look at someone else's happiness, and our own joy feels incomplete. Nothing in our life has actually changed in that moment, yet everything feels different. That is the hidden power of comparison. It alters our inner experience without altering our reality. Comparison often starts innocently. We admire someone, we get inspired, we observe their journey. But somewhere along the way, admiration turns into measurement. We stop asking, "What can I learn?" and start asking, "Why am I not there yet?" And the moment life becomes a race, peace quietly exits. Because no matter how fast you run, there will always be someone ahead of you on a different track. The biggest problem with comparison is that we compare our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. We see their achievements, not their anxieties. We see their smiles, not their sleepless nights. We see their results, not their sacrifices. And yet, we judge ourselves harshly based on incomplete information. It's like comparing your rough draft with someone else's final chapter and concluding that you are not good enough. Social media has made this habit even stronger. With one scroll, we see people achieving, traveling, celebrating, winning, and subconsciously, A voice inside us whispers, "You're falling behind." What we forget is that life is not a competition where everyone must reach the same destination at the same time. Life is a journey, and every journey has its own pace. When you constantly look sideways, you forget to look inward. Comparison doesn't just steal joy, it also creates unnecessary pressure. We start living according to someone else's timeline. If they succeeded early, we feel late. If they married early, we feel delayed. If they figured life out, we feel lost. But life doesn't come with a universal schedule. Some people bloom early, some bloom later, and some bloom quietly without any applause. A flower does not compete with another flower, it just blooms when it's time. When we compare, we also forget our own uniqueness. We try to become a better version of someone else instead of becoming the truest version of ourselves. But the world doesn't need another copy, it needs authenticity. The very things that make your journey different are the things that give it meaning. When you measure your worth using someone else's ruler, you will always feel short. Another painful effect of comparison is that it makes gratitude difficult. You can have so much to be thankful for, but comparison convinces you it's not enough. It shifts your focus from abundance to lack. And when the mind is trained to look at what's missing, even blessings start feeling insufficient. Gratitude and comparison cannot coexist. One grows only when the other fades. It's important to understand that comparison often comes from insecurity, not truth. When we feel unsure about our own path, we look at others for validation. But the solution to insecurity is not comparison, it is clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you value, and what kind of life truly fulfills you. When you are clear about your own direction, someone else's destination doesn't disturb you. There will always be people who are ahead of you in some areas and behind you in others. Life is multidimensional. Someone may have success but lack peace. Someone may have wealth but lack connection. Someone may have recognition but lack purpose. You are only seeing one slice of their life, not the whole picture. Comparing fragments will always give you a distorted conclusion. The moment you stop comparing, something beautiful happens. You start appreciating progress instead of perfection. You celebrate small wins. You become kinder to yourself. You understand that growth is not about being better than others, but about being better than who you were yesterday. That shift alone can bring immense relief. Instead of asking, "Why them and not me?" try asking, "What is my next right step?" That question brings you back to your own path. And when you walk your path with sincerity, patience, and self-respect, you realize that peace was never outside. It was waiting for you to stop measuring your life against someone else's and start living it fully. So remember this deeply. Comparison is not a motivation tool, it is a joy thief. The fastest way to lose peace is to constantly check where others are. The fastest way to regain peace is to trust that your journey, with all its twists and pauses, is unfolding exactly as it should. In a world where everyone is eager to speak, silence has quietly become one of the most misunderstood strengths. We often believe that the loudest voice wins, that the quickest reply proves intelligence, and that every opinion must be defended. But life teaches us, again and again, that not every situation needs a response, and not every provocation deserves your energy. Sometimes Silence communicates more wisdom than 1,000 perfectly chosen words. Many conflicts do not begin because of real problems, but because of misunderstood emotions and wounded egos. In such moments, words spoken in anger rarely heal, they usually deepen the wound. When emotions are high, logic is low. Yet, we still feel compelled to react, to explain ourselves, to prove our point. What we forget is that once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. Silence, on the other hand, gives us space to breathe, to reflect, and to prevent regret. Choosing silence does not mean weakness. It does not mean you have nothing to say or that you agree with what is being said. It means you are choosing peace over proving a point. It means you understand that your self-worth is not dependent on winning every argument. There is a quiet confidence in knowing when to speak and when to remain still. That discernment comes with maturity. Think about how many arguments escalate simply because both sides want the last word. The issue may be small, but the ego makes it large. Silence has the power to interrupt that cycle. When one person refuses to fuel the fire eventually dies out. Silence removes the oxygen that unnecessary conflict feeds on. There are also moments when silence protects your dignity. When someone speaks from ignorance, jealousy, or anger, responding often brings you down to the same level. Silence allows you to rise above the noise. It sends a subtle but powerful message. Not everything deserves my reaction. Your calm becomes your strength, and your restraint becomes your voice. In relationships, silence can sometimes speak louder than confrontation. There are moments when explaining yourself repeatedly only leads to frustration. When someone is not ready to listen, no amount of explanation will create understanding. Silence, in such cases, is not withdrawal, it is wisdom. It gives the other person time to reflect, and it gives you time to preserve your emotional balance. However, silence is not about avoidance, it is about intention. There is a difference between silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from clarity. The former suppresses emotions, the latter processes them. Wise silence is conscious, not passive. It allows emotions to settle so that when words are eventually spoken, they come from understanding rather than impulse. Silence also helps us listen, truly listen. When we are constantly preparing our response, we are not fully present. Silence creates room to hear not just words, but emotions, intentions, and unsaid feelings. Many misunderstandings dissolve simply because someone felt heard, and listening requires silence. In today's fast-paced world, we are conditioned to react instantly. Messages demand immediate replies, opinions demand instant reactions, and silence is often misinterpreted as weakness or indifference. But inner strength does not rush. It pauses. It observes. It chooses. When you stop reacting impulsively, you regain control over your emotions and your time. Silence can also be a form of self-respect. When conversations turn disrespectful, stepping back without engaging is a way of setting boundaries. You are saying, without words, that you value yourself too much to participate in negativity. Boundaries don't always need to be loud. Sometimes they are quietly enforced. Over time, you begin to notice that silence brings clarity. It allows thoughts to settle, emotions to align, and priorities to become clear. Many of life's best decisions are made not in noise, but in stillness. When the mind is quiet, intuition becomes audible. There will always be situations where speaking up is necessary to stand for truth, to protect yourself, to support others. Silence is not about staying quiet forever. It is about choosing the right moment. Words spoken at the right time carry weight. Words spoken at the wrong time carry regret. So remember, this silence is not empty, it is full of answers. It is a pause that prevents damage, a space that invites wisdom, and a strength that protects peace. When used with awareness, silence becomes one of the most powerful tools you will ever carry, not to avoid life, but to navigate it with grace. Gratitude is one of the simplest ideas we hear about, yet one of the most difficult to truly live by. We often think gratitude is something we feel after life becomes perfect, after problems are solved, after desires are fulfilled. But real gratitude does not wait for life to be ideal. It begins right where you are, with what you have, and with who you are in this moment. And when gratitude becomes a way of seeing life, something remarkable happens. What you have starts to feel like enough. Most of our dissatisfaction does not come from lack, but from focus. We focus so intensely on what is missing that we become blind to what is already present. The mind is very skilled at noticing gaps. It looks at the one thing we don't have and ignores the 10 things we do. Gratitude gently shifts that focus. It doesn't deny ambition or growth. It simply anchors us in appreciation while we move forward. Think about how often we postpone happiness. We tell ourselves, I'll be grateful when I get that job, or I'll feel content when life becomes easier. But life keeps moving the finish line. As soon as one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place. Gratitude breaks this endless chase by reminding us that peace is not found at the destination, but in the journey. When we practice gratitude, we begin to see ordinary things as extraordinary. A normal day becomes a gift. A simple meal becomes a blessing. A familiar face becomes a source of comfort. Nothing has changed externally, yet everything feels richer internally. Gratitude trains the heart to notice beauty in simplicity, and that awareness creates quiet joy. There is also a deep emotional strength in gratitude. It softens resentment, reduces anxiety, and calms restlessness. When the mind is busy appreciating, it has less space to complain. This doesn't mean life suddenly becomes problem-free. It means problems stop dominating your inner world. Gratitude doesn't remove pain, but it gives pain context. It reminds you that pain is a part of life, not the whole of it. Many people misunderstand gratitude as settling. They fear that being grateful will make them complacent. But gratitude is not about lowering standards. It is about raising awareness. You can be grateful and still strive. You can appreciate the present and still work toward a better future. In fact, gratitude often fuels growth because it builds a positive foundation from which effort becomes joyful rather than desperate. Gratitude also changes how we relate to others. When we appreciate people, we stop taking them for granted. Small gestures matter more. Conversations become warmer. Relationships deepen. Often, we realize the value of people only after they are gone. Gratitude teaches us to value them while they are still here. Even in difficult times, gratitude has a place. It doesn't ask you to be thankful for pain, but it invites you to be thankful in pain. Thankful for the strength you are discovering, for the lessons you are learning, for the resilience you didn't know you had. In darkness, gratitude becomes a quiet light, not loud or dramatic, but steady enough to guide you forward. Gratitude is also deeply connected to contentment. Contentment does not mean having everything, it means appreciating what you have without constantly comparing it to what others have. When gratitude becomes habitual, comparison loses its grip. You stop measuring your life against someone else's and start honoring your own. Practicing gratitude does not require grand gestures. It begins with small, intentional moments. Pausing to acknowledge something good. Saying thank you not out of habit, but with presence. Reflecting at the end of the day on what went right instead of only what went wrong. These small acts, repeated daily, slowly rewire the way you experience life. Over time, gratitude becomes less of an action and more of an attitude. You stop chasing happiness and start noticing it. You stop waiting for life to be perfect and start finding peace in imperfection. What once felt ordinary starts to feel meaningful. So remember this gently and deeply: happiness is not about getting more, it is about appreciating more. Gratitude turns what you have into enough, not because life suddenly gives you more, but because your heart learns to need less. And in that space of enough, you discover a peace that no external achievement can ever replace. There is a question that quietly shapes the direction of our life, especially in difficult moments. When something goes wrong, when plans fail, when we are hurt or disappointed, a voice inside us immediately asks, "Why me?" This question comes naturally. It comes from the ego. The ego wants life to be fair, according to its own definition. It wants comfort, recognition, and control. So when things don't go as expected, it feels personally attacked. Why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? And slowly, this question turns pain into bitterness. But wisdom asks a very different question. Wisdom doesn't deny pain, but it doesn't get stuck in it either. Wisdom quietly asks, "What can I learn from this?" This one shift changes everything. The situation remains the same, but the inner experience transforms. Ego focuses on injustice, wisdom focuses on growth. Ego wants sympathy, wisdom wants clarity. The ego believes that life should reward us immediately for being good, for working hard, for having the right intentions. When that reward doesn't arrive on time, ego feels cheated. It starts comparing, complaining, and blaming. And while the ego is busy protecting its image, it misses the lesson hidden in the experience. Wisdom, on the other hand, understands that life is not here to satisfy our expectations. It is here to shape our character. Think about how much energy is wasted in asking, "Why me?" This question rarely leads to answers that heal. Instead, it leads to frustration, self-pity, and sometimes resentment toward people or life itself. It keeps us stuck in the role of a victim. And as long as we see ourselves as victims, we unconsciously give away our power. When wisdom steps in and asks, "What can I learn?" the mind opens instead of closing. Suddenly, the experience is no longer an enemy, it becomes a teacher. Failure becomes feedback. Loss becomes perspective. Rejection becomes redirection. Pain becomes a signal, not a punishment. Wisdom understands that every experience, pleasant or painful, carries information meant for our growth. Ego is very attached to image. It wants to look strong, successful, and right all the time. So when mistakes happen, ego either hides them or defends them. Wisdom is less concerned with image and more concerned with improvement. It is humble enough to admit, I don't know everything, and brave enough to ask, how can I do better next time? This is why wise people grow even through hardship, while ego-driven people grow bitter. Two people can go through the same failure. One becomes angry at life. The other becomes wiser about life. The difference is not intelligence or luck. The difference is the question they ask themselves. Wisdom also teaches us that not every difficulty is personal. Sometimes things happen not because we are wrong, but because life is rearranging us. Ego takes everything personally. Wisdom takes everything purposefully. Ego says, this shouldn't have happened to me. Wisdom says, this happened for a reason, even if I don't understand it yet. When we start asking, what can I learn? We take responsibility without self-blame. Responsibility is empowering. It puts us back in the driver's seat. It says, I may not control everything that happens, but I can control what I take from it. That mindset builds resilience. It allows us to move forward without carrying unnecessary emotional weight. Wisdom also softens judgment toward others. Ego quickly blames people when things go wrong. Wisdom looks at the situation more deeply. It asks what boundaries need to be set, what patterns need to change, and what truths need to be accepted. Instead of reacting with anger, wisdom responds with understanding. This doesn't mean wisdom avoids emotions. It allows sadness, disappointment, and confusion to be felt fully. But it doesn't let those emotions define the story. Ego says, this pain proves life is unfair. Wisdom says, this pain is shaping me into someone stronger, calmer, and more aware. Over time, people who choose wisdom develop a quiet strength. They don't collapse under pressure because they see pressure as preparation. They don't fear mistakes because mistakes have become teachers. They don't fear setbacks because setbacks have shown them new directions. Life will continue to challenge us. That is unavoidable. But whether those challenges shrink us or shape us depends on the questions we ask. Ego will always ask for comfort. Wisdom will always ask for growth. Ego wants life to change. Wisdom changes itself. So the next time life surprises you in an uncomfortable way, pause before asking, why me? Take a breath, step back, and gently ask yourself, what can I learn from this? That question may not remove the difficulty immediately, but it will transform you slowly. And in the long run, it is wisdom, not ego, that leads to peace, strength, and a deeply meaningful life.